November 5th, 2019. Digital Trends Live is about to start here. Some of the topics we'll cover on today's show. A new study has been released showcasing some of the vulnerabilities of smart home devices and how they can be hacked by lasers. We'll walk through the details. A new app called Drive Time wants to make your commute more entertaining. We'll speak to co-founder and CEO Nikki Vori about their platform and vision for the future of vehicle entertainment. And Adam Kahn is the CEO and founder of Akan Semiconductors. Will join the show to discuss their Mirage Diamond portfolio and how it can revolutionize the industry with low-temperature technology. And NASA's Voyager 2 space probe has sent back its first interstellar message, becoming the second object made by humans to do so. We'll talk about what that message means for the future technological understanding of the universe. All that and more coming up on today's Digital Trends Live. Hello, everyone. This is Digital Trends Live. This is our daily show here from Digital Trends, bringing you the trending tech topics of the day, news, interviews, discussions, headlines, and so much more. We are broadcasting in the Samsung QLED 4K studio, and we're broadcasting live across a number of different platforms right now. We're on Periscope, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Dailymotion, Apple News, LinkedIn, 2 different mobile apps, a smart television app, and at digitaltrends.com/live. So you can find us a lot of places, and that's because we are interactive. We want to be where you are. So drop in your comments, your questions, whatever you want to bring up throughout the show. Let us know what you want to talk about. We will read them. Sometimes we'll agree, sometimes we won't. But either way, we want you to be a part of the show, and let's get this thing going. I'm Greg Nibbler, joined now by Hanif Jackson. Hello,
hey,
Hanif.
How's it going? Glad
Doing
to be
well.
Here.
A lot to talk about today.
Yes.
As usual.
Let's get started.
Let's do it. Let's kick it off right now. So, let's talk about this story that we brought up at the beginning, and this has to do with smart homes. And I'll say this for any of you out there who have been a little bit paranoid, maybe, sometimes justifiably so, about the privacy of your smart home devices and how secure they are. This isn't going to be one you're going to necessarily be happy about, but it has to do with the study that came out in conjunction with a Japanese university and University of Michigan, where the study they released talked about smart home devices, and we're talking about Google Home, we're talking about Facebook Portal, we're talking about Siri, we're talking about Amazon Alexa, like the big devices that are out there. They could all be apparently hacked with lasers.
Lasers of all
Lasers.
things. Yeah,
Yes.
That's crazy.
So what they're saying is the same device that you utilize, and it's called a MEMS mic. And this is just a little bit of technical information here to explain this. So micro electromechanical systems, or MEMS, are the components that make up the microphones in these smart home devices. So when you're speaking, that's what's picking up your voice, that's what's understanding, and it kind of resonates with what's being said. Well, apparently lasers can also have the same effect on them. So if you shine a laser at it in a certain way, you hit it right at the right angle, it will have the same effect as though you are speaking to the device, meaning you can manipulate it in really a number of different ways. And this study showcased a few different ways in which they're doing it. It's pretty impressive what they were able to do.
Yeah, that's astounding, right?
Yeah.
That you would think, there's a difference between audio and light signals, and, that would be really complex things. Nope, they figured it out.
They figured it out, and some of the things that they were able to do were, the distance. They said that they could use these lasers as far as 360 feet away if they had a direct line of sight. They demonstrated it being in different buildings and shining it through from one building to the next, and they were able to affect these things as long as it was positioned right. If it was somewhere hidden in the living room, they couldn't get a direct line of sight, sure. But if you have, say, on your windowsill,
sure,
they could hit it.
I mean, the apartment building that I live in, it's separated by a courtyard. You can see a clear line of sight into someone else's apartment building. If they've got a device, there you go.
Yep.
So
you could be sitting there with your laser just.
I can imagine in large cities that's going to be a concern.
It's definitely a concern. Yeah, and that's one of the things they showcased. And they actually put out several different videos, which were pretty cool. This is from Light Commands, and so this is part of this thing, showing how they're able to do it. And they're not doing it in a malicious way. They want to actually get this information out there so that all the companies know. They said they released this report publicly. So it's just like, look, here's what we did. Now it's up to the industry to respond, to figure out how to do it, but it's better to have it out there. And I appreciate actually what they did by putting this out publicly, so that now companies do have to respond to this.
Right. So this is where the term hack kind of, you have like the soft hacks, and then you have like the hack in the term sense that a lot of people think of, where it's in a negative connotation, right?
Right.
But a hack can sometimes just mean an exploit, right? So they figured it out, and they're sharing this exploit. So I'm assuming in the hopes that it gets fixed. Right?
Yeah.
So
Yep, and I think that's exactly it. They just want people to know about it. They said that even if some systems were protected by a PIN, I guess that security side of it isn't that advanced either, to where you can just force it. They said it was like basically a brute force attack with the laser, where they can just power right by whatever security setting you had and still get into it. Now, I mean, realistically, you're going to know when it does turn on if you're there, if you're in the living room. They said that you would probably see the laser shining on it and you would hear it turn on. But if you're not home, and say you have it hooked up to something where you're doing some shopping online, they could, in theory, be able to do that. And that's what they're saying, is just, this is something that needs to be
I love
fixed.
this little animation that we're seeing if you're watching on video right now.
Yeah.
It's pretty clever.
It is. It is. That was the other thing. They talked about unlocking doors. Like if you have a car that has this kind of capability, they could unlock a car door. They could turn on a car. They could open up a garage. Just all these different possibilities of this technology that we've seen is, so ubiquitous across all of these smart home devices and even beyond. It's all something that's based upon this one kind of technology that nobody's tested this apparently before, or at least not publicly, and now we know. Lasers, man.
I mean, that's
lasers.
intense. You can literally get inside of someone's entire smart home ecosystem with a laser.
Yep, you technically could by this, and so yeah, they're demonstrating turning on, Google Assistant and
If your smart lock's connected to your assistant,
Yep.
there you go.
Yep.
Now I'm inside your house with the laser.
Yeah, and so exactly with the laser, you're already there. So that's what we're finding out now. So again, this is the report they put out publicly. The hope is that all of these, and we know these companies are going to have to respond to it now to figure out what's going on with it, how they can, maybe there's a software solution to stop this side of it, because you also now have a whole bunch of people who are sitting at home or aiming at their neighbors' smart home devices, seeing what they can do. I imagine it's a little bit more complex than that, but still, if they were able to do it, somebody else could figure it out. So definitely an interesting study, and you can read more about that at Digital Trends. But another thing to be wary of as we see more and more smart home devices integrated into homes, something to be concerned with. That privacy side of things is big. So read more about that at digitaltrends.com. Let's continue on with some more trending news right now, and that's what we want to keep you up to date. We did bring up Facebook Portal. Doubt there's a whole lot of people that have that, but here's something we mostly have, and that is a Facebook account or an Instagram account or a WhatsApp account. Pretty much everybody has one of those three.
I've got a couple.
Yeah. And I have all three. I mean, I do. But we're going to talk about the rebranding of what's going on with Facebook. So they want to, this is an initiative that they had earlier this year, where they want to put their name on all of their platforms. So it's Instagram by Facebook. Yeah, WhatsApp by Facebook, which isn't necessarily the best marketing move.
They're trying to own it.
They're trying to own it.
Literally.
Yeah. But now they're going to be, this is something that you're going to see rolling out, and this is why it's a trending story. So they've got a new logo that's going to be going on. So you can see at the bottom there showing Instagram of how it's going to look. It's got the Facebook, or that's WhatsApp, I guess. Got Facebook at the bottom. It's going to be an all capitalized thing. So the idea is to distance Facebook, the company, from Facebook, the app.
Yeah, it's separate. That's really interesting. It's a nice, cleaner sans serif, all caps kind of look. I think it looks pretty clean. I'm just wondering why they went with this now and not sooner. But yeah, I guess this is part of them trying to make everything kind of look the same, and so that way you know that it's everything by Facebook.
By Facebook,
They're the ones bringing it to you.
By the all caps Facebook.
All caps.
Not the. Not the lowercase one. So that's what we're seeing there with that. And this is something, like I said, it's going to be rolling out. And it's more of a sign of that, reminding everybody, I think, this further integration of all of their apps, where it's all going to be, it's all under this brand of Facebook. They were before. It's just, I feel like a lot of people, who are leaving Facebook, were like, no, I'm just on Instagram.
Well, right, but it's the same thing. And that's a good point to make. I don't think a lot of people were aware of it because there was no type of branding front-facing initiative. It was just kind of oh, you should know this. Or, oh, you didn't know that. Type of thing.
Yeah.
So this, maybe that's part of the reason why. If we just make it big, bold, and all caps, everyone will know that that's what it is.
Everybody will realize. Well, and we also know that they're going to be working on integrating the messaging apps in these too. So that's going to be something that's cross-platform communication. It's this whole initiative that they have that we're going to see more and more of this rolling out. So I think this is just the first thing.
For sure.
Now it's okay, now you see the branding, get used to that. Now here's what we're bringing on next. And it's just going to be one thing after another as it all rolls out before it's all kind of mixed up.
Also, too, this might be them trying to clean up and kind of polish Facebook's image a little bit, especially since everyone's kind of, looking at Facebook in a different light right now. Maybe if we can just put some nice, clean, polished
Some nice
sans
colors
serif
on it.
and just make it clean and nice.
Yeah, see, look at that. It's
bright.
shiny. It changes colors. Yeah, it's cool. That's what's going on, though. So we'll be seeing more of that. So check that out, digitaltrends.com. I'm sure we'll have more along those lines. All right, something else. Talking about some actual tech. Let's talk about Xiaomi and their new smartphone. And I wanted to talk about this, one, because it's pretty highly anticipated worldwide, but also because of the megapixels of this camera. It's the camera battles, right? All these phones are battling on cameras. Well, Xiaomi now has one with a 108 megapixel camera that is on the back of this phone.
Wow.
108 megapixels.
For what reason, sir?
Well, and that's something that we've discussed actually here on the show before, because you're seeing some other companies that are working on this, that are having these massive megapixel cameras that'll come on the back. And, you know, for showcasing, it's one of those things, I don't know, bigger is better, where it's like, we have 108 megapixels.
I mean, this is kind of, I'm thinking this is paralleling like what we're seeing with like TVs, right? Like just like 8K, 16K, like, oh my gosh, my eyes can't even pick up on what's happening right now. Like,
you won't even know what you're watching.
So I think the camera wars are kind of going down that road as well, right? Like, it's for why? Why do we need that many?
Well, I mean, that's the battle between all these companies. I mean, you have to look at the really big ones, Samsung, Huawei, Apple, you know, at least worldwide, Google, LG. The cameras are the key thing. The design's part of it, but it's the camera battle that's the big thing right now. So I guess if you already have a wide angle lens, you have I don't know, what the different kinds of lenses that you can have. There's so many different ones. A zoom lens, different ones on there. I guess megapixels are the next thing to go to.
Yeah.
Like that's the next thing you can add on.
And I think, you know, I kind of look at it from a practicality standpoint, and that's why I'm like, why would you need this? But I mean, realistically, what they're trying to do is innovate. You know, they're trying to push the edge. So
right, which is good for all of us. And another key thing about this Xiaomi one, we've got a review up at Digital Trends because Andy Boxall did. A couple of just other stats. They have a 5 megapixel telephoto lens, so that's the zoom feature that a lot of them have. 12 megapixel so 2 different telephoto lenses that they've got on there, so 2 different ones. And different sensors for those. So the sensors are actually pretty good. They've got a Qualcomm chip in this thing, Snapdragon 855, so that's good. But when you look at the price, this is what I really like. Now the 8-element camera lens will cost only around $500. So that's at the premium one. So premium edition model with 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage, plus an 8-element camera lens, $500.
I mean, that's a steal of a deal.
Yes.
It's not $1,000.
It's not.
$1,000. I remember we were talking not that long ago. That's going to be the new normal.
Right.
And then we're seeing the pro versions of phones like passing that $1,000 mark. So, yeah, $500. Let's do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a good deal. So that's something you can check out now. You can read about it at Digital Trends now. Xiaomi typically isn't available in the U.S. as far as selling through carriers, so you do have to order it. But it is still a pretty amazing phone, and I would hope that even if it's not this one, if some of the other carriers take a look at this and like, okay, well maybe we could sell one for a little bit less too, and see a trend going back toward that way a little bit. That'd be kind of cool. Doubt we'll see that. But still, something to take a look at. We'll cross our fingers. All right, moving on to our next topic here, and then we're going to take a break, and we'll come back with some Read 'em Weep. But this is something else I wanted to bring up because it showcases what Netflix is doing, talking about experimentation and innovation. Earlier this week, or last week, we were talking about how Netflix was experimenting with speeding up the shows so you can binge faster, where you could watch it 1.5 times as fast, or you could slow it down too if you wanted to, and the voice would adjust with it. Yeah. And creators were not stoked about that. Judd Apatow made a big statement about it, getting pretty upset about it. Aaron Paul did. So people want you to watch their movies and their programs as they were intended to be watched. But this is another option that Netflix is testing out, and this is with the approval of Seth Meyers for his new comedy special that's going to be coming out, where you're going to be able to skip certain sections of his stand-up special where he jokes about Trump. That is what they're adding in. They're going to add in a special button where you can skip the Trump sections if that's too much for you. The comedy special is called Seth Meyers' Lobby Baby. And if you know anything about Seth Meyers, he rips on Trump all the time. He's really prolific with it. And so this is why he put this in there. Now, he said he's doing it as a joke about a joke. But that's what they're adding in.
You know, I think it works with stand-up, right? I think other shows or genres, it's kind of weird that you could speed up or skip parts. I guess I mean, there is fast forward, right? But like, it's just kind of bizarre. But this is Yeah, there's a little bit of a meta thing going on here.
Yeah.
It's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, coming from him, I think it's funny. Otherwise, like if if they start using this in other ways, then it's like, well, why are you even watching it? If this is something, that's the way I kind of look at it. Because if you start thinking about, oh, you could skip, a violent scene in a movie or a conversation you don't like, so you can just watch the parts you like. I mean, I don't know. I think that's might be going a little too far.
Yeah, it is. It's a different type of, maybe some people might even say censorship, right?
Yeah.
Like it's, but it's there. It's you don't have to do that, right?
Right,
So.
you don't have to. But yeah, it is there. It's kind of unique. I do like the fact that Netflix is testing out these different ways that people watch those. So that's definitely interesting. Everything from the Choose Your Own Adventure series, type of series that they have, to this, to where you choose your own jokes, I guess. It's an interesting use of that tech, but let us know what you think in the comments. We want to see what you think about all of this and everything that we're talking about today. We've got a lot to cover, but here's what's going to happen next. We want to read some of your comments. We want to read some of the comments online. We're going to take a quick break.
Oh, is it coming up?
It's coming up.
Oh.
It's the next segment. Next segment coming up is Read 'em and Weep. So stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Yeah.
Apollo 11, your go for separation.
TV is making history again. The groundbreaking Samsung QLED 8K.
And welcome back to Digital Trends Live. We are live. We're broadcasting on all kinds of platforms, which means we pay attention to what you're saying. We want to know what you're talking about, whether it's talking to us, to our articles, or whether just to the internet as a whole. We want to do that, and that's what we're going to do for this next segment. It's called Read 'em and Weep. I'm Greg Nibbler here with Hanif Jackson. We are going to take a look at some of these comments, and we're going to comment on them as we come back. Let's take a look here. So Anjali B. Cracks me up real nice every time I read this. Hashtag Tuesday Thoughts. So the thought is, stop this habit of asking people to get married because some people of their age are married. Many people of your age are dead, but nobody asked you to die. Wow. Wow. Anjali, just throwing some shade. I wonder if somebody has annoyed her with a question that she's not very stoked about.
Wow. There's a lot of life lessons going on there.
Yeah.
A lot of just hot takes on life in general. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. It's not anybody's business, if somebody is or not. But
Sure.
But yeah, that's a lot of people your age are dead. You think that? Yeah. Wow. That just saying it. Yeah, that sounds pretty harsh. Anjali.
Tuesday Thoughts.
Nice. Yeah.
There you go.
I like it. I like the style. I like the style. This is holding back no punches. That is on Twitter. So for Tuesday Thoughts, let's take a look at this. Christina Arceri regarding Samsung Q94K QLED TV versus LG C9 OLED TV. I was looking at another tab and I thought he was Joaquin Phoenix. Seriously, close your eyes and listen to the first part. Weird, Joaquin didn't get as excited though, LOL. So this must be talking about Caleb. Does Caleb sound like Joaquin Phoenix?
I don't know, but that's like a compliment and a half,
It
right?
is.
No,
I've heard Greg Proops before. People who listen to Trends with Benefits, we've had some emails about, there was actually somebody who wrote in saying that he listens to the show, but he never wants to see what we look like because he just imagines Caleb is Greg Proops. So that's part of it. But Joaquin Phoenix, damn, man, that's a pretty solid compliment. I think you're right.
people really come here for the lead, aka the Whiskey Mist.
Yeah, I mean, dude, he owns YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, he owns YouTube. for this company. So yeah, Christina,
Well done,
totally
kid.
get it. We'll pass that along to him.
Or
We'll
should
see
I
if-
call him Joaquin?
Joaquin. Palatine whiskey. Regarding, I'll take any excuse for chocolate whiskey kissed treat like this chocolate mint infused beauty. Hashtag National Donut Day. It is National Donut
haven't had
Day.
breakfast
This
yet.
is true.
I want that.
There was a rumor that there were donuts around here earlier. I'm just gonna say there were, but they may all be gone now. So there's a chocolate whiskey kissed treat. Chocolate and whiskey on a donut. How do you feel about this?
Could be good.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna hate on that.
Yeah.
Could be really good actually. It just depends on where the balance is, right? And if
Right.
it's like really one of those like boozy infused treats, then that
Yeah.
might be a bit too much.
Right.
Especially in the morning.
It's just loaded with whiskey.
Yeah.
Just get it started. Well, Palatine, you can feel free to send one of those in here to us. We would be happy
please.
to
Two.
test it out. It was 2. We'll take 2. Maybe a dozen. Send in a dozen.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. We're all for it. All right, Elon Musk. Elon Musk. All right, great
This guy.
work by SpaceX, Dragon Team, and Airborne. To be clear, we've only done one multi-parachute test of MK3 design, so 9 more left to reach 10 successful tests in a row. This video is actually pretty amazing. We talked about this yesterday. This was a test that they conducted over the weekend where it was trying out with
my.
the
Thank you. Ask.
Is
and
that
you
whiskey?
shall
Are you giving him whiskey right
receive.
now?
This is service at its finest.
Well, it's
I,
Let's just go to straight shots then. I'm taking a shot.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
You got this, right? You don't need me here anymore.
well,
all right, so this video in particular, just get right into the microphone. We'll do a little ASMR while we're doing this too. So yeah, that video is pretty amazing. So first test of a future 9 more to test this out. That's for the SpaceX, the Dragon capsule. We'll see where that goes. All right.
Oh, this is a comment.
Budget gamers regarding Dell XPS 13 7390 review. This review feels Verge-ish.
Okay, budget gamers.
What do you think they're
What a-
saying here?
what a handle.
Hanif, I want to know.
You know, I'm
your
not gonna
thoughts.
go in on this guy right now.
Why not?
I'm gonna.
I mean, it's.
I got to get my blood sugar going. This donut's helping.
All right, get fueled by the donut, and then we'll circle back around to that. All right, this review feels Verge-ish. I don't know if that's a compliment or not. I'm guessing it's not a compliment.
No.
It's not a compliment.
That was
Especially when
low-key
for
dig,
gaming?
I feel like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, with a handle like that, I can't think that was a compliment.
Yeah, budget gamers, you mean? All right, well, there we go. We responded. Jimmy, regarding this device, helps you navigate without changing your view of perception. Terrible idea. Clearly, the inventors have never driven a car. Without changing your view or perception, I'm gonna guess. Okay, view of perception. I'm unsure exactly how this device works, but so it must be you just keep staring straight ahead?
Perhaps.
Perhaps. This is a mystery to us as well, but I will
I wonder
say
if he meant like field of view.
maybe that's what it means. Maybe that's what it means. The field of view on that.
I think that's what he meant. Was
Okay.
Field of view.
See, we're interpreting things as we
Yeah.
go through here too, Jimmy. So regarding this device, terrible idea. Clearly, the inventors have never driven a car. I feel like sometimes that is the case.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does feel that way. Well, that is what we're taking a look at right now. So thank you, everyone, for
That
dropping
donut
in.
was awesome. Thanks to the staff for bringing it.
And Hanif with the whiskey donut right now, and then he has to go back to work. All right, so we were talking about driving there at the end. We do have a driving segment coming up. So here's what's going to be happening. Joining us, we will have from Drive Time Play, we've got Nikki Vori, the co-founder and CEO of Drive Time, talking about an app that you used hands-free for entertainment while you're driving. It's something that you would actually engage. It's trivia. I tried it out. It's interesting. I think the concerns that you have are the concerns that a lot of people
Okay,
would
good.
have. And we'll ask about that, but it is a pretty unique app, so we'll get into that discussion here coming up. We're gonna have a lot of discussions. I want everybody to drop in their comments and questions as we go throughout. But first off, thank you, Hanif.
Hey, thank you. And
Yes.
thanks for the donut.
Yes, indeed. Well, yeah, enjoy your donut.
I will.
You're at Digital Trends Live. We take care of our guests. All right.
Start my day right.
Yes, indeed. All right. So, like I said, drop in your comments. We're on a bunch of different platforms. Lots coming up on the show today. Stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Apollo 11, your go for separation.
TV is making history again. The groundbreaking Samsung QLED 8K.
Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you for joining us. So much to talk about today on today's show. So hit that subscribe button. That way you get the notifications when we do go live every single day, bringing you tech headlines, news, interviews, and discussions. We're going to talk about right now some audio entertainment. We've seen leaps and bounds in audio entertainment over the last several years, especially with podcasts, audiobooks. But what about interactive audio entertainment? We're going to discuss that right now, in particular for the car. Joining us, we have Nico Vori, one of the founders of Drive Time. Thank you so much for being here on the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So I have a lot of questions and have actually been trying out the product itself. I got a download yesterday, so I tried it out. But before I get into that, I want to bring everybody up to speed. Can you talk about the founding of this company and maybe what you saw as a hole in the marketplace that you thought your company could fit in?
Yeah, so we're DriveTime.fm, and our angle is creating interactive audio entertainment specifically for the driver of the car. We as Americans spend 30 billion hours a year in our cars, an average of hour a day, 5 days a week. The daily commute's the ultimate daily habit. And yet we have nothing to actually do while we drive. So we have obviously passive audio to keep us company, music and podcasts and audiobooks and things like that. But there's actually nothing to do while driving. And so for years and years, we've been entertaining ourselves by reading Trivial Pursuit questions from the box or playing 20 questions or I Spy with My Little Eye while we drive. Well, we're just using technology to create interactive audio entertainment and voice-based games specifically for that kind of final frontier that lacks interactivity, and that is the context of the car.
So talking about it from that aspect too, one of the things I would have to ask is how the platform works, because distracted driving is certainly something that a lot of people are concerned with when it comes to texting and using your phone. But this, you don't actually touch the phone.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So we are completely hands-free, eyes-free. So we are designed to be played entirely in the background. We are a mobile app, so we're available in the App Store and Google Play Store, and now recently on Amazon Alexa as well. But yeah, that's exactly right. We're designing the experience to be played behind your favorite mapping app. So if you want to have Waze or Google Maps or Apple Maps or anything else up in front, our technology allows you to play completely hands-free and eyes-free using just your voice with no visual, no touch, no swipe, no tapping, nothing required.
That's key. So it plays over the top of everything else.
Correct.
Okay. So walking through the app itself, let's talk about what it is and what you can do with it and how that entertainment actually works.
Yeah, so our kind of vision is to become the interactive version of SiriusXM. They, of course, have an incredible offering for the driver of the car, mostly baked into the head unit, but they have a mobile app as well. They have hundreds of channels of content that they, range from music and news and podcasts now as well, and other kind of passive audio entertainment. Our vision is to make that kind of interactive. And create a similar kind of service. And so to that end, our service right now has about 8 channels. Our kind of flagship is Drive Time Trivia, which is the channel that we launched with. But we also have Jeopardy. We have a partnership with Sony to bring Jeopardy with Alex Trebek into the car. So that's pretty awesome. People really been digging.
That's huge.
Jeopardy, yeah, exactly. Playing Jeopardy while I drive. We have a channel called Tune Time, which is kind of name that song type channel where you're guessing the song. But over time, our vision is to create hundreds of channels of interactive audio entertainment, ranging everything from games like we have now to other infotainment type content, such as news, such as music-based content, interviews, things like that. Where, of course, the angle every time is it's interactive and it's designed for the driver to use their voice and engage with the content in a safe and appropriate manner.
That's an interesting concept. Have you thought about anything like a Choose Your Own Adventure style interactive podcast?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you can imagine it, it's probably on our roadmap somewhere on a whiteboard in our office. So yeah, Choose Your Own Adventure, of course, is amazing. We actually do have a channel called Masterpiece, or it's called Storytime. But the first story in Storytime is called Masterpiece, and it's basically a similar type experience where you are making choices, and those choices have consequences and take the story and take the narrative in a different direction. So, do you kiss the girl, or, do you try and break up the relationship? That will have a consequence and take you in a different direction. So yeah, there's a lot of really fun things you can do when you can be interactive and kind of engage the content in a way that otherwise you would just have it be passively coming at you.
One of the interesting things that I found when I was trying it out was that it seemed to match me up with other drivers. Is that how that works? So is that actually another driver that it's matching somebody up with?
Absolutely, yeah. So, over time, we want to make it even more social. But yeah, basically the way the Drive Time Trivia channel works is we pair you up against another driver, and you're playing against a real person, and their actual kind of trivia experience. So over time, we want to make that even more social, make it even more engaging, where, you can kind of engage with people in the moment. But as of right now, yeah, we're basically matching you up against somebody else who's played that day's trivia show already.
So another thing, just going back to this distracted driving aspect that a lot of people talk about. I know that from what your standpoint is with drive time is that it actually does the opposite. That it keeps somebody alert. Can you walk through your philosophy on that?
Yeah, so we actually think and believe, and in fact know that the research shows that what we're offering is actually safer than the alternatives, including silence or listening to passive music or having a conversation. Two reasons for that. Firstly, there's a big body of research that looks into these things called alertness maintaining tasks, or AMTs for short. Alertness maintaining tasks are exactly what you'd imagine them to be. They are tasks that are not driving related, that are kind of cognitive based, but you maintain your eyes on the road and hands on the wheel, but they're basically keeping you alert. And trivia questions have been tested and found to be the safest version of this. So that's one reason why we believe that what we're doing is safer. The second is that we act as a preventative. So while you're playing drive time, while you're engaging in this content, this audio-based content, that's completely hands-free and eyes-free, you are not doing other distracting things. You're not checking your messages. You're not, browsing Facebook. You're not sending a tweet. So we basically act as kind of a fun and interactive and a context appropriate, that's the key, context appropriate alternative to other distracting tasks that you might be engaging in while you drive. And of course, we all see that as we're driving in traffic. You see people putting on their makeup, you see people sending their text messages, you see people kind of browsing their Facebook feed. Well, while you're playing Drive Time Trivia or any other Drive Time content, you absolutely are not engaging in those activities.
How do you look at this going forward? We see more and more advancements with autonomous vehicles. It's certainly something, it's a little bit down the line before we have a lot of this, but with ride shares, we'll probably see it a lot sooner. Waymo has it in Phoenix. Is this something you could see interacting with that and being part of that experience as well? Or how do you view entertainment in the vehicle as we go forward with all this tech?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, with self-driving cars and fully autonomous vehicles, of course, we are some way away. My view is that we're at least 10, 15 years away from any kind of mass adoption of this kind of tech. And, before it really gets consumer adopted, it's probably going to be in things like trucking and other kind of transportation. But yes, absolutely. Over time, the vision for the future is always interactive. We're always adding more interactivity into our lives, with mobile phones and smartphones. We added interactivity into those kind of 5-minute snackable bites when you're kind of just, in between meetings or, kind of getting up from the breakfast table and moving on the go. With voice interactivity, we can add that into these other contexts now, which, again, we see the car as kind of that final frontier. But with fully autonomous vehicles, we can add other things that include touch, that include a screen, that include, swiping and tapping and controllers that are more complex and more interactive than voice alone can be. But in the interim, we see voice as the kind of most natural way of interacting and engaging, both in a utilitarian way in the car, put on the windscreen wipers, change the channel, open the windows, and also with entertainment such as we're developing.
Well, it's a really great app. I'll say this: it's very intuitive. I tried it out yesterday. I love trivia myself, so I can get very competitive on that. But it's a lot of fun, And I want to ask for everybody out there to walk them through. I've downloaded it, but what's the best way to get involved with it, to try it out, and what are some of the different platforms and tiers that are available?
Yeah, thanks for that. Right now it's available, most easily available in the app stores. So just go to the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, type in Drive Time, search for Drive Time, and download the app with the orange car icon. That's Winky Miles. Miles of Smiles. He's our mascot. Keeps you happy. We've just launched also just the Drive Time Trivia channel, but we've just launched that on Amazon Alexa, coming to Google Assistant soon. But yeah, that's the best way to download the app right now. Give it a go. It's a 7-day free trial, and after that, it's a monthly subscription. We know you'll love it.
Well, Nico, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, we're clearly fans of interactive entertainment here with Digital Trends Live. We interact on all kinds of platforms, so I think that's definitely the future of entertainment. And thanks for joining us to talk about your platform. It's a lot of fun. Congrats on the success, and excited to see where it goes from here.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Great being on the show.
All right, so definitely cool learning about that. So that was Nico Vori. They're from co-founder and CEO of DriveTime, and talking about what they're doing with that platform. Really interesting stuff. And we have lots of interesting stuff to talk about here on Digital Trends Live. That's part of what this show is. We bring you all kinds of different contexts. We're going to be talking about diamond semiconductors here in a little while. We're going to be discussing a report that just came out of Freedom on the Net. So Luke Dornmel is going to join us to talk about that. It's a big report. It comes out once every year. So that'll be coming up on the show. Just giving you a little bit of a tease of what we're going to be talking about. Up next, we have Georgina Torbett, who is one of our writers here at Digital Trends, to talk about dark energy and dark matter and how we're looking for that in the universe. There's a lot of tech behind it and some big announcements that came out. So we're going to be discussing that coming up. So drop in your comments, your questions. We are interactive. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Apollo 11, your go for separation.
TV is making history again. The groundbreaking Samsung QLED 8K.
And this is Digital Trends Live. Again, thanks for joining us. So hit that subscribe button, share the show, let other people know about it. Each segment you can watch on its own as well, or you can go back and watch the entire show. That's what I said is the best thing to do. So all of that is because we bring you so much news when it comes to technology. And right now we're going to talk about something that has to do with space. We're going to talk about dark energy, dark matter. What are scientists doing to detect it and understand the universe? There's a lot to unravel with that, but to do so, we have none other than Georgina, who is joining us right now to walk us through this. Thank you so much, as always, for being here on the show.
My pleasure, Greg. Thanks for having me.
So this article is fascinating, and it talks about what we're doing, and this is up at Digital Trends right now where you can look at this, but talking about what we're doing to detect and understand the universe in a better way. I think maybe to start off, could you walk us through what exactly dark energy is and dark matter is?
Sure thing. So dark energy is a concept. It's been around since the 90s because it used to be thought that the universe, we know it's expanding, and it used to be thought that the expansion would slow down, that eventually the universe would sort of run out of energy, as it were, and the expansion rate would slow. But then when we launched Hubble, we found out that's not true. Not only is the universe not slowing down its expansion, it's actually increasing. So in the past, the universe was expanding more slowly, and now it's expanding faster than it should be, based on what we know. And so the name of the force, we don't know what it is, but there's something that is sort of pushing the universe apart, and we call that dark energy. And so the counterpart for that is dark matter. And that's when if you look at a galaxy like our Milky Way, and like many others, all these stars rotate around a central point. The thing is, based on what we know of matter, a lot of these galaxies should be flying apart. that the stars shouldn't have enough force to keep them in place, that they should expand outwards. But that doesn't happen either. And so we think there must be something like a disk of matter of some kind around galaxies which pushes them together. And that's what we call dark matter. So an easy way to think about it is dark energy is the thing that's pushing the universe outwards as a repulsive force, and dark matter is what's bringing everything together as an attractive force.
Interesting. And neither of these things are things that we've actually detected. Are they both? They're both concepts.
Right. They're the label we give to these forces we've seen, but we don't know where they come from. So it's a sort of placeholder term for
whatever whatever ends up being. Well, knowing that and understanding, that idea, that concept of it, what are we doing to go about detecting this and to further understand what exactly these forces are?
So there's a couple of quite exciting projects that are going on at the moment. One of them is aboard the International Space Station. There's a tool called the Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer, or the AMS, which was launched in 2011. It was only supposed to last for 3 years, but we found all this useful information for it. And so now NASA is trying to find a way to repair this instrument and keep it going. And that works by basically sending particles through a magnetic field. And some particles which are positively charged go one way, and particles which are negatively charged go another way. And then you can see if they give off an X-ray. And between all these different bits of information, you can basically tell whether there's any antimatter passing through. And antimatter is important because scientists think that maybe antimatter might be created by two dark matter particles hitting each other and being annihilated. So if we can use the AMS to spot these antimatter particles, that's suggesting that maybe there's some evidence of dark matter there, indirect evidence at least. And then when it comes to dark energy, there's a brand new tool called the Dark Energy Spectroscopic Instrument, or DESI, which is a new instrument that's been installed onto a telescope in Arizona. And what this does is it's mapping out millions of galaxies, basically trying to find a location for millions of points across the night sky. And with more detailed maps, we can see more about how the expansion of the universe works, and which we know is driven by dark energy. So by using these massive maps of distant galaxies, we can get more information about how dark energy is working. And from that, hopefully, eventually, find out what it is.
Wow, there's a lot to unravel just in those two things. So the ISS-based telescope is the Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer. So that's the one that's passing particles through this detector, something that I'm assuming the astronauts are running when they're on the space station. So that's what we're looking at apparently right there. Was that actually? I believe that might be. I'm not sure if we're looking at the Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer or if we're looking at.
This one we're looking at. This is the results from the DESI, the Dark Energy Spectrometer.
So
this is the one that's trying to look for dark energy. So this is actually a picture down at the bottom, that white blob. That's the Triangulum galaxy, which is a nearby galaxy. And all of the other little pinpricks are going to be distant galaxies that are going to be mapped out through the instrument.
And so this is actually telling how they're pushing apart, and so what is containing them within that as well. So it's very fascinating. It's all of this different stuff with dark matter and dark energy. So looking at it from a broader concept, what are we going to learn about this? What does this tell us about, if we discover what this is? What are some of the extrapolated results from that?
Well, so far, we are certainly a long way from understanding this. But I think something that's really interesting is that dark energy makes up about 68% of all the energy in the universe, and dark matter is about 27% of the universe. And so actually what we consider normal matter is actually only 5% of everything that there is in our universe. So maybe we shouldn't actually call it normal matter. It's actually the anomaly. And so there's this huge sort of potential wealth of information and energy about how the universe operates on a fundamental level that we haven't even scratched the surface of understanding. So it's a long way from being, if we discover something, then we will be able to get this usable technology out of it. But it's a really important part of understanding the fundamental workings of the universe.
Well, you can read more about it at Digital Trends. It really is incredible, what we're doing with this. So how far out are we for these telescopes and these studies? Is this something you're going to be doing right away, or what's the timeline on that?
Sure. So the DESI instrument has just sent back its sort of first tester image, which is the one we were just looking at. And it's going to start collecting more information at the end of the year. So that will be in soon. And the AMS, which is aboard the ISS, the astronauts are going to be attempting to fix that over the next few months in a series of spacewalks. And if they can get the cooling system fixed, then it can start picking up more data, and we'll be able to get more of that potentially next year.
Nice. That's actually way sooner than I thought it would be. So seeing some kind of feedback on that. Well, it's really fascinating stuff, and you can really dig into it. Like I said, Digital Trends, we've got all the articles on this to kind of learn more if you want to really study this. And Georgina, thank you so much for joining us. As always, so many fascinating articles that you have up that to dig into, and it helps so much to have you come on and explain it, walk us through it, and have it make sense for us. And really appreciate it, and looking forward to talking to you soon.
My pleasure. Thanks, Greg. Speak soon.
All right, so talking about dark matter, dark energy, and different ways that we're looking to study that. I love talking about space technology and how we're analyzing things. And clearly, those are some big concepts, and they are concepts. We don't know, nothing's proven yet. But once we understand some of that, then that's where you extrapolate the results that could really filter down to us. All right, so that's one side of things. We have more to talk about. We have lots to cover on today's show. Up next, we're going to be talking about semiconductors, diamond-based semiconductors, why this technology is revolutionary, why super cool semiconductors are, and I mean that actually temperature-wise, super cool semiconductors are important going forward. So we're going to discuss that, all kinds of things. I see everybody dropping in your comments and your questions. Definitely some opinions there that are being voiced on Facebook. That's part of this show. It's interactive. We want to know your opinions, so feel free to drop those on there. We'll be back in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Apollo 11, your go for separation.
TV is making history again. The groundbreaking Samsung QLED 8K.
And welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Appreciate everyone who joins us here every single day. And we do broadcast every weekday at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. And we talk about technology. We talk about inventors. We talk about influencers. We talk about people who are influencing an industry with their own technology. All of that can be wrapped up into one. And we're going to discuss something right now, which is the cutting edge of technology in semiconductors. We have Adam Kahn, who's the founder and CEO of Akan Semiconductor right now joining us. First off, thank you for being here on the show.
Thank you for having me, Greg.
So I wanted to give everybody base knowledge to go off of. Can you talk about your company and and then after that, semiconductors in general and their role in the realm of technology?
Definitely. So I'm Adam Kahn, the founder and CEO of Akan Semiconductor. We were founded in late 2012, and we're the global leader in diamond semiconductor technology. What does that mean? Well, semiconductors are materials that take in energy inputs and either condition them or amplify them. Examples of these are things like optoelectronic devices like LEDs, where you're taking in an electrical input and you're converting that into light. Things like attenuators, amplifiers, and broadcast electronics, taking in a particular signal, conditioning it, and outputting it. Or as you'd think in traditional computing, things like processors, et cetera. So ACON Semiconductor focuses on two main material types. Those are semiconductor optics. These are things like your smartphone display screen, things like optical components for high energy lasers, and also more recently, countermeasure protective coatings for laser and electromagnetic weaponry, as well as semiconductor electronics, things like diodes, power attenuators, building up a roadmap to actual diamond-based semiconductor electronics.
So really the backbone of all modern electronics, essentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's why it's so important. So let's talk about ACON in particular. So you founded your company with a different kind of premise, and I know that you founded it with kind of your own take on it, and I know we're going to go into talking about diamonds. Can you talk about what that was?
Sure. So my background is in condensed matter physics and semiconductor engineering. I pioneered a method to make diamond into an effective semiconductor material. Diamond has long been known to have very favorable attributes. It has really high thermal conductance, about 5 times more than that of copper, the bulk de facto cooling material, as well as the ability to handle energy inputs, much higher power densities than what's being used now, and also much faster switching speeds. So this trend that we have of continuing to have our electronics go thinner and thinner and faster every 2 years. There's this thing everyone knows, Moore's law, the end of the silicon platform. Diamond has long been known as a potential successor material, and we've actually enabled that to be used in semiconductor electronics. And in late 2012, we partnered with the Department of Energy, Argonne National Laboratory, to validate our technology. And since we've added not only the semiconductor components, but things like low temperature diamond growth, this allows us to put diamond on materials that it really hasn't been able to before, things like display glass, but also softer materials like germanium, lower temperature materials like processed electronics that have metals on them. So you're really opening the door for enabling and integrating diamond.
So you talked about the low temperature side and thermal conductiveness and where that is something that you're working towards to keep those temperatures cool. Can we talk about what the advantages are of that and what that does in the long term?
Absolutely. So normally you'd have to put copper on the bottom of your chip and then put it into a package, and that really adds complexity, making it a lot thicker. But also, it's really not an efficient way to cool the material if you think about it. All the heat's being generated in the actual circuitry itself. So putting diamond, which is an insulating material naturally, instead of copper, which is conducting, actually allows us to put it directly in chip. So where the heat's actually being generated on the circuitry, we can integrate it through nano integration, a very thin layer of diamond, which allows us to wick away the heat much faster and much more efficiently than this traditional copper method. And so the diamond actually being directly integrated on chip allows the material to perform at room temperature, at higher temperatures, all the way up to 300 C, which silicon is traditionally limited to about 120 to 180. So not only does it allow it to run hotter, but it also allows it to run more efficiently during use. So not only are we saving the power in terms of the thermal conversion, but we're also putting diamond now on chip, which allows the next step to actually make diamond componentry and integrate those materials.
And saving that power, I mean, talking about the power that we can run with that, and let's talk about actual technology and maybe some products that would benefit tremendously from this as we look forward to where we're going with this kind of thermal conductiveness.
Absolutely. So we're integrating into the field of what's called high temperature electronics, and we're starting in actual aerospace. So this includes things like fighter jets, like unmanned aerial vehicles, as well as automotive, where you have really high temperatures. So the electronics need to be cooled actively. Integrating diamond allows you to reduce the system weight, so you can remove all the copper that's in there because you're not cooling directly with diamond materials. As I mentioned, it also allows you to operate these materials hotter, so you reduce the need for these cooling loops. And that's very important for things like flight, where you think about the amount of weight that it takes, so that directly translates to cost savings, so you can have more fuel, you can go farther distances in terms of flight, but also in terms of capability. Now, if I'm taking that weight off in terms of the heating and the cooling capability, I can actually now put more dense circuitry in there. And this really opens the door for the next generation of flight systems, where you need to have, more countermeasure systems, more electrical communication systems, and electronic systems, avionics, et cetera. So there's a direct conversion there in terms of the savings to increase payload. And it's also translatable if you think about things like plug-in and hybrid electronic vehicles, where there's 2 different cooling loops to cool the plug-in electronics. So now you're talking about direct increases in terms of the battery charge to distance that that vehicle can travel, or integrating more electronics or more sensors like you're going to need to do for autonomous vehicles.
Which is such an important part that a lot of people, I think, forget about the backbone of it. Again, going back to the fact that the semiconductor is the backbone, that you need this in order to run all of that processing power. That's so much that has to be processed when it comes to an autonomous vehicle, or even, just utilizing that even just electric vehicles like you were just talking about. So looking at it from that aspect, we've got the vehicle side of it, and you mentioned avionics and even defense technology. What about something like augmented reality or virtual reality, going to 5G technology? How important is this for all of that to really work?
Extremely important for two ways. One, let's talk about, if we could, the semiconductor optics part. So AR and VR, you have this really bulky system that's on top of your head. The heat's really pressed against your face, and there's not a way for it to dissipate. And that really limits the system's effectiveness, because after about 30 minutes, you start feeling this fatigue. You have to stop using these systems. That's really inconvenient for gaming. That's system failure for things like industrial use, where you're actually using this to either image a chemical hazardous environment, nuclear environment, potentially on an oil field. So that downtime translates to ineffectiveness. So diamond is a really hard material. It's transparent in the visible spectrum. As I mentioned, we can now integrate it with traditional materials like display glass. So this includes your Gorilla Glasses, your chemically hardened glass, borosilicate glass. That's really important because now you're not only bringing diamond's hardness and strength. So our materials are actually 11 times harder, 6 times stronger, and dissipate the heat 800 times more effectively. But you're also putting it into a system where you can now reduce that system weight. So very, very important, not only for the electronics aspects, but I also want to touch upon that consumer electronics and display.
So we're talking a lot about the processing power and the amazing things that we can do, as far as the thermal conductiveness, how hot it's going to run, and how cool it'll run, actually the opposite. So with all of that you can do with this, but I also wanted to ask about just pricing, because when you hear diamonds, you think, okay, this is going to be a very expensive process. How do you mitigate that in this entire process?
So that's where Aecon's philosophy is a bit different than the other diamond players in the world. We're focused on lab-grown nanocrystalline thin film diamond. So what this means is that we can grow very thin layers of diamond and tap into these bulk attributes without having the exorbitant cost of this jewelry grade diamond. So for example, our smartphone screens are Mirage Diamond Glass. It only uses about 100 nanometers of diamond to get this extraordinary properties. That's about 1/10,000th the thickness of a human hair. So it's cheaper actually than sapphire. It's directly now cost competitive with Gorilla Glass in the future iterations. We actually sent over some images. I'm not sure if you got them from our hydrophobic testing.
I'll take a look and see if we have those. But some different testing that you're doing with that.
Yeah, and this was actually a very interesting part of the project we were doing with Lockheed Martin and the U.S. Army, where we were actually showing this diamond glass as a protective coating for high energy laser systems. And, a part of this is first, the diamond has extremely high thermal conductance, so it's able to dissipate the beam energy from a thing like a laser weapon. But what's really cool about this is we actually also integrated this material, fluorinated graphene oxide, graphene being a well-known 2D material. We integrated this as a top layer in our diamond. And this allows the material to also be what's called super hydrophobic. So water beads off quite regularly. The contact angle is over 105 degrees. So this prevents water and oil from building up in terms of your smartphone. But what's really interesting for things like high altitude and flight, you need an oxidative protective layer. This allows us to integrate this directly on diamond. And this layer is also as hard as diamond. So you have the ultimate 2D material and the ultimate 3D material really put together in an innovative way, bringing these favorable attributes from diamond and graphene now to consumer and aerospace.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, you are working in so many different fields at the same time with this material, and it just showcases the importance of this and what it can be utilized for. I mean, kind of the sky's the limit is really what it feels like at this point, the more we see different companies work on it. Well, I wanted to say thank you very much for joining us. For people who want to learn more about Aecon Semiconductor too, where should I send them? Where would they go?
I appreciate it. Aeconsemi.com, AKHANSEMI.com.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us here on Digital Trends Live.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, so fascinating discussion right there. We're learning so much today just on today's show, and we still have more coming up. We've got a lot to talk about on Digital Trends Live. So we're talking about semiconductors, we talked about dark energy, dark matter, we talked about 108 megapixel phones. Well, up next, we've got some more technology for you, including the idea that your face could be on a robot. It's back up again. I feel like this is inevitable. It's going to happen. So we're going to be discussing that. We've got some more news, some trending stories to talk about. We have Luke Dormel is going to come on to talk about the Freedom on the Net report that just came out. And we've got another interview for you. So we're broadcasting live. Stick around, back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Apollo 11, your go for separation.
TV is making history again. The groundbreaking Samsung QLED 8K.
And this is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thanks for watching. We keep you up to date on what's going on in the world of technology, and we're going to do that right now. There's some trending stories out there that I want you to know about. And the first one is this. We're going to space, and we're going to talk about the Voyager 2, which is the longest in-space human-made object that is out there. It's gone the furthest away from us, and right now it is sending back its first reports from interstellar space. So a couple of things to know about this. Now you think Voyager 2, how is this the furthest, the longest spaceborne human-made object like this? Well, the Voyager 1 actually launched after it. So the Voyager 2 launched in August 20th, 1977. So it's the longest running space mission. Voyager 1 launched after that. But Voyager 2 now being out there 11 billion miles from the sun, is finally sending back some things. Now, it's so far away from Earth that it takes about 19 hours to travel from the spacecraft back to us, the information that it's sending. But it's still sending information over 40 years later, and this new information that it's getting, that it's sending back, is pretty incredible because it tells us more about the heliosphere. So what we're talking about is just the influence of the sun. We're actually past it. However, the information that we're finding out is that it still reaches out even further. And there's a lot of science that goes into this, a lot of information you can really analyze, and you can go and read the reports on it. But it's pretty cool that still, after all this time, these two objects are still out there, the Voyager 1 and the Voyager 2, sending us back information, constantly helping us learn about our solar system and then now beyond. So pretty cool information, pretty cool story. Again, that's the Voyager 2 reaching interstellar space. The Voyager 1 is further. It's about 13.5 billion miles away, which once you get up to that number, I mean, the concept is just, it's crazy to even think about, but there's a lot of great images and a lot of great explanations that NASA has kind of walking through what this means. But that's the news. Voyager 2 sending back information from interstellar space. You can read more about it at digitaltrends.com. All right, some other trending stories here that I want to talk about, and we're talking about some cutting-edge technology. Right now, this is actually another thing coming from the Microsoft Research Group. So we talked about them a little bit yesterday, and it's about storing information. So storing information is key. We're talking about hard drives, cloud storage. But this in particular, we're talking about storage of media and archiving things. And this is a sample that they've done where they archived 1978's Superman movie on a piece of glass. It's called Project Silica. So it began in 2016, and the idea is to create a solution for cold storage, but sustainable storage. So right now, when you look at films, they're stored on actual celluloid, and this is put into archives. But the problem is that breaks down over time. It's susceptible to fire. It's susceptible to all kinds of things that could actually destroy it. It's not going to last forever. And we see this with all kinds of things. In CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, they can all break down over time. And maybe it'll take a little bit longer, but there's only so much information you can store on those. Well, this idea of storing something on it's a 7.5 centimeter by 7.5 centimeter piece of glass, they stored 75.6 gigabytes of data on this. Here's why this is huge. One, they tested it out for durability. The durability is incredible of this. They tried burning it, they ran it with steel wool over it, they boiled it, they heated it in a microwave. None of that destroyed the data that was stored on there. So if it's that durable, it's something that could last for really forever as far as our purposes are concerned. And they can also squeeze 74 layers onto a disk. Now, just by context, if you think about CDs and DVDs, that's usually one layer, one or two layers. Now this, you can do so many different layers, and that's a huge aspect of it. So that's a huge thing that they can do. They can put so much information on such a tiny little piece of glass. Now you may wonder why Superman. Well, originally one of the project creators was trying to find some audio from a Superman play, and he had to go through all kinds of different organizations to actually find it and restore it. So that's why he chose 1978 Superman. He's just a Superman fan to do their test on it. So it creates what's called voxels, as we see right there. That voxel is where the information is stored, and it's designed, like I said, so it can be stored for a long, long period of time. And that's one of the main reasons why they're doing this. Now you extrapolate that kind of data. What else could you use this for as far as sustainable, something that's going to withstand all kinds of pressure? Well, this is what we could see this for. So that's Microsoft's Project Silica. So that's just something I wanted to let you know about. Pretty interesting project. You can find more about it at digitaltrends.com. All right, finally, it's time to talk about some robots. And we've talked a lot about robots utilizing the faces of humans, and there's a company from Russia that we've discussed before here on the show, and they have just put out a press release talking about something else they're going to be doing. So this company called Promobot, and they have a robot that they've showcased before called the Robo-C. Now, it can't walk. It's a torso on up, but it exhibits somewhat lifelike expressions. And the founder of the company, one of the founders of the company, utilized his own image, every time I look at it, utilized his own image to create this robot that's showcasing some of the different expressions of how human-like this robot can be. There it is, winking at you. That is something you never want to see. But the technology behind it is pretty amazing. So they said the face has 18 moving parts. It allows the robot to produce 600 micro expressions, and it's got 100,000 different speech modules on this. So the artificial intelligence has 100,000 different speech modules. But their press release has to do with the fact that now they are offering to put any face you want onto this robot. So you could take your own face. It's so angry. Why is it so angry? So you could put your face onto this robot and then utilize this in your own workplace, utilize it at home. They talked about how it could be used for bankers or they could use it for customer service, or you could have it at home as a greeting. They've actually sold some of these already. They mentioned there was a Saudi Arabian couple who bought likenesses of themselves to be greeters at their own house. So, oh God, come on. Come on. That is just terrifying right there, what we are looking at. Nobody wants that. That is something... That is something that you could get. So that's if you want to see my face like that, let me know. You can purchase one of those. But that's what Promobot is doing. So with their Robo C, you can check that out at digitaltrends.com and pick up your own home robot with terrifying nightmare faces of yourself. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We've got more that we're going to be talking about here on this show. So like I said, Luc Duhamel is going to be joining us here in just a little bit. We'll be discussing that freedom on the net. We've got Lee Odess to talk about Allegion and talk about everything that they are doing coming up next year on the show. And we're live, so we want to get your comments, your questions, drop them in whatever platform you're on. We'll be back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Apollo 11, your go for separation.
TV is making history again. The groundbreaking Samsung QLED 8K.
Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Thank you for joining us and being a part of the show. We broadcast live every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, and we like to talk about cutting-edge technology here on the show. And smart homes are certainly something we see advancing rapidly. There's every aspect of them, but locks are what we're going to focus on right now. Things around the doorway and smart locks and different ways that you can incorporate technology into that traditional security. So it's something that's important for a lot of us, and that's what we're going to discuss. We have Lee Odess, who's the Vice President of Strategic Partnering with Allegion. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me.
Excited to talk about this, and smart locks are certainly something that, I mean, personally, I've got one myself. I utilize it. I think it's a really great way to add another level of security. There's also a little level of worry that comes with it sometimes as well. Let's talk about what your company is doing, and then we'll go into this industry as a whole.
Sure, absolutely. So Allegion's the parent company. We own brands like Schlage, which a lot of people know from the smart home consumer side. But we're focused on bringing those smart locks that we've been working on for hundreds of years with the mechanical side and bringing it now to the electronics.
So yeah, I mean, the idea of different door locks and different ways that we can secure ourselves. Yeah, like you said, hundreds of years, people have been trying to figure out locks.
Sure.
But now we're getting into this era where with this kind of technology and the rapid advancement of it, that we can utilize it in a lot of different ways. So let's talk about in particular some of the products that you're working on and why you think these are important.
Sure. Recently, we just introduced a Wi-Fi enabled lock called the Encode lock. First of its type that doesn't have to have an adapter that attaches to the other things within your house. So go directly from the lock to the Wi-Fi. You can use, as you see, like a keypad. You can use your phone if you'd like to. You can send keys to your friends, to really anybody that you'd want to have access to your house, as well as tied into additional services like you're seeing now trends within unattended delivery and things such as that.
Yeah, unintended delivery is definitely one for a lot of companies. Amazon's, I believe, working on it or already has it. I'm sorry, Amazon does have that. Walmart. So unattended delivery, that's certainly something we're going to see more and more of. What are some other trends that you're seeing in this industry that we might see utilized going forward?
Sure. Different lock types. That's one trend. So typically, traditionally, you see a deadbolt, but you're seeing all the different types of different flavors. Is one area. You're seeing a lot of partnerships on the ecosystem side. So before, whereas pretty much standalone products, you're starting to see these things integrated into the overall experience within the home that people are starting to expect. So really, it's really meeting the customer where they're at, which is a real big trend.
Let's talk about the security side of this. Since we are talking about locks, security is certainly something important as far as the physical security. Let's talk about the digital security. And we see stories every day about how things can be hacked. We had one earlier today about how Google Assistants can be hacked by lasers. I certainly wouldn't think that you could hack a lock the same way. But what do you focus on when it comes to that, and how do you maintain that sense of security when it does come to a physical lock?
Absolutely. We take it very serious as a company. I mean, we have a brand that people have known, like you said, for 100 years, like Schlage. So it's not something that we take lightly at all. And it's a promise that we have to the marketplace. So there's same expectations that they have of us on the mechanical side. We take those same practices to bring them to the electronic side, and it's a cultural side. So this isn't just like a pocket of our organization that cares about this. We culturally, the whole entire organization do. But we also do bring expertise in so that we can take what they know and bring it into the product. So it's good practices, good hygiene, having the resources to make sure that it's top of mind and it's not something that you have to be concerned about. We focus heavily on it.
So that's good to know. So focusing heavily on that, what are some other aspects of the IoT industry, I suppose, in general? What more ways that you can see this incorporated, because this is a product that somebody can actually use. It's something that they're securing, that they're depending on. So it's not just something that's
Right.
like a smart home assistant that can play your music. This is
Absolutely.
something that's really important. So how do you focus on that aspect, and where do you see some other ways that this kind of technology can be incorporated into the home?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, this isn't an area that's typically seen to be a gadget of the home, right? This is the
Right.
thing in your front door securing your house. So we don't lose that in the overall essence of what we do. So we make decisions based around it being a safety product. But we also understand, and a big focus on us is around this idea around seamless access into the house. So you bring the safety and the convenience and bring them together, where historically the security industry has been about inconveniencing people. Right.
Yeah.
So, but now with technology, people, the desires that they have is to be able to deliver that convenience that they want. So we balance those things. So again, it comes down to having really, really hardened products that you have on the door. So the metals that are there and the approach that we take to the underlying testing, some of that type of stuff that not necessarily extremely sexy, but it's definitely stuff that people will care about. And then we couple that with, on top of it, the electronic side. So the technical side, some of the fun stuff that you want. And when you blend those together, we do believe you deliver a product that is not only cool, but it's also a utility in the home that you're going to use on a regular basis you can trust.
Right. That's an important balance there to have between those two, because you have to have the security, but you also want, it's cutting edge electronics. You want something pretty cool that you can do with it, and something that's going to last. And I guess that's another question I have too. How long would you say that something like this lasts? Is it upgradable? Or let's walk through the product itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So as the product is, since it's a smart lock, and you see people change their locks, not as much as they may do, say, a smart speaker that they have. It's a product that gets installed and is there. So they're built to last for a very, very long time. And we have the warranties and the rest that go along with that. And the expectation of the marketplace is that the product works that way. But then from the technical side, there's also the desires for it to have some of the upgradable things with the OTAs and things like that people come to love around your tech, your electronics products that you have. So we bring that together. Now there are some things that you can't necessarily modularize, like some of the wireless technologies that are around there. So you do want to upgrade and change as maybe you've changed the partner that you want to have from a voice, and they use a certain one that somebody doesn't. So you do want to pay attention to that. But overall, it's one of those types of products that does get into the house. It gets installed. It's a safety first type product. And then we layer on the different functions and features that you'd want that we can from more of the software side of things that you would see. There are some basic functionalities that do come, and you asked the question earlier about what are some of the trends and that people are using it. And one of the areas that we find that is, again, very practical is around notifications, just the awareness of where your house is at. Because again, it's a safety product. So if, you may not be interested if your radio's on, it may be a bummer, but that's okay. But you want to know if your house is unlocked or not, right? So having that awareness and that ability, some of the notifications, some of the stuff that's been, I would say, not reported heavily on are actually the things that drive the value of why people utilize the locks on a regular basis.
So yeah, that's an interesting aspect because I'm somebody who's always worried like, oh crap, did I leave the door unlocked? This is something that I'd be able to check on clearly with that. Well, going forward, I want to let people know where they can pick up these products too and check out everything. And maybe you can just highlight one of the products themselves. Is this something that you can install on your own, or do you need somebody else to come into it? How's the technical side of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you could buy the products at most of the big box retailers that you have in the marketplace, as well as the online retailers. Where, as a name like Schlage, we're everywhere when it comes to the ability to get the lock. So whichever one's your favorite, I'd recommend going there on that side. As far as the installation standpoint, yes, it's intended to be a product that's a do-it-yourself type product. But we see trends heavily as a do-it-for-me, right? Where a consumer goes and they buy the lock, but when they get home, maybe the door, there's some issues in the spacing of that. So if they need help in doing that, we have a lot of locksmiths that work with our products and have for years. So that comfort side and the fear of what it might be, it doesn't need to necessarily exist because you have different ways of doing it. But we do spend a lot of time on making it so it's as easy as possible. And if you take a look like the Encode lock, it's a couple screws. Right. That's really all it is when you take it out. Screw it in, and then it works. You attach it to your Wi-Fi, and you're ready to go. And it's nice and easy. That's the intent and the experience that we're trying to deliver. And that's, again, this marriage of customer expectations from the consumer side of electronics with a security product that is actually also working at the front door of your house, protecting you and your family.
Nice. Well, I want to say thank you so much for joining us too to talk about this. It's an exciting facet of technology and where we're seeing some advances with this. The more technology advances, the more we're seeing it into this, like as far as security, something that's actually physically securing you, but also digitally securing. It's that marriage and that balance of those two. And I appreciate you being here on Digital Trends Live to talk about it.
Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so and this is what we do here on this show. We continue through, we talk about all kinds of different technology, and that is talking about smart locks and different ways that you can utilize those in your home, and pretty cool stuff. So let's do this. We got to take another break. We have more coming up on Digital Trends Live. We continue the march with one more segment here. We have Luke Dormel is going to join us. We're going to talk about the Freedom on the Net report. This is an annual report that comes out. We're going to discuss what that was, what it entailed, what some of the highlights were. This just came out last night, so we'll talk about that and talk about where we are in the state of the internet and how secure we are, how much freedom is on there. That's the key part. So all that's coming up, so stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Apollo 11, your go for separation.
TV is making history again. The groundbreaking Samsung QLED 8K.
Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Thanks for joining us. We keep you up to date on what is going on in technology, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So there is a report called Freedom on the Net that comes out. It comes out every year, and it's an extensive study. There's a lot of data to analyze. We're going to give you some of the highlights and just talk about what it is here right now. So this report just came out. I'm Greg Nibbler, joined now by Luke Dormel, and Luke was just letting me know that apparently there's a fireworks display going on outside of his house right now.
Absolutely.
Really trying to top up everybody else who joined us today. Nobody else had a fireworks display, Luke. So,
well, as all of our well-educated viewers will, of course, know, today is Guy Fawkes night here in the UK. From V for, or not from V for Vendetta, but perhaps popularized around the world by V for Vendetta. So yeah, that kind of explains why there are numerous explosions going on in the background. So I apologize.
Remember the 5th of November. All right, so that's happening right now. Let's talk about Freedom on the Net. Let's talk about what this organization is. Can you fill us in just a little bit of details on what the organization is and what the report is?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, the Freedom on the Net report comes out every year. It's carried out by a group called Freedom House, but it's also carried out with a number of researchers from around the world. So those are people, those are independent researchers and academics and advisors, all sorts of different people in 65 different countries around the world. And the reason that this is significant, of course, that there are plenty of reports every day that talk about I suppose, kind of life on the internet and how that is impacting upon us. But this report is very, very extensive. As I say, it covers 65 different countries. It's incredibly well researched, and it guides a lot of the policy conversation that you tend to hear about this. So this is something that's very widely read by sort of politicians and really anyone with kind of a vested interest in exploring this topic. So a lot of what you hear discussed or read discussed in this report is the kind of discussion that we're probably going to have over the next year regarding some of these kind of issues about life on the internet and the way that is sort of impacting on a number of different areas of our lives.
Yeah, and that is so key. I mean, the more that we're online, the more that every country, I mean, you said that it's like 65 different countries that are involved in this. There's a lot to study, and especially with issues like Facebook, where we've seen this, where we're talking about political ads, you know, how much of that is put on there, how much fake news is on there. I mean, all of this interacts with our experience online and how much freedom that we have as far as being on there. We also have discussed this here on the show before, how Russia wants to shut off the internet from the rest of the world. That certainly would be a lack of freedom. China has their own system where they're keeping information out. You know, this is all things that the more that we go forward, you would think freedom of access to all of the internet would be something that's ubiquitous that everybody wants, but it's certainly not something that is happening worldwide.
For sure. I think that something that this report highlights, or a couple of things that it highlights, firstly, is the degree to which internet access can change depending on where you are in the world. This report looks at three main types of access. They talk about obstacles to access. So that's kind of infrastructural or economic barriers that stop people from accessing the internet, sort of limits on content, so things like sort of censorship and the blocking of websites, and then also violation of human rights, so things like surveillance and privacy. And what's kind of interesting about those is, firstly, they do differ greatly around the world. So China was singled out as being the country for the fourth year in a row which had, I suppose, the biggest abuser of these internet freedoms. Iceland actually came top of the rankings in terms of being the best kind of protector of people with regards to these freedoms. But really, although you see big changes depending on where in the world you look, a lot of the topics that you alluded to there are things that we increasingly see, regardless of where you're talking about in the world, because the internet is by nature global, even though you have sort of a fracturing of it depending on where you're talking about. Things like the ability of one country to maybe impact on the electoral process of another country or the democratic process. These are things which really kind of are big global issues.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much to analyze. They said that they have a newly launched, the Internet Freedom Election Monitor to help monitor that side of it. And I think that's something here with a lot of elections coming up all over the world, I'll say this just for our U.S. Viewers, you're going to hear a lot about this coming up over the next year because we have our 2020 elections coming up, and election freedom and election. Well, there's just so much that goes into it. I mean, it's so much that we could analyze if we really wanted to go down that road, but it's a lot. And this report in particular, going back to that, so freedom on the net, and this is out for public viewing, right? Anybody can go and view this report, and that's one of the key factors. Are we going to be analyzing it a little bit on our site?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got an article up about it today, which sort of, I guess, highlights some of the main findings from the report, which people can go and check out. I hope that they would go and read that article. But really, I would say that the report itself, a lot of the time you'll read kind of white papers and they're very kind of dense and they're quite difficult to access in terms of the content that they're discussing. They're very kind of academic in the way that they're kind of phrased. This is a very kind of accessible report. It's interesting to read, and I think it's so important to read because, as you say, I think that these are really kind of issues which impact on everyone. And I think what's kind of scary and sort of in a way kind of sad about a report like this is that I'm not that old, and I remember over the last sort of 10, 20 years how the discussion around the internet has gone from this really kind of utopian kind of rhetoric about how this was going to kind of bring democracy to everywhere in the world. It was going to kind of level the playing field in terms of people's access to information. And you realize that actually now, not that far down the line, the way that we talk about the internet and our concerns about it are actually, that there is a huge amount of negativity and a huge amount of things to be concerned about. And so I think that is kind of a really sad thing when you read a report like this and you hear about the way that I think this is the ninth year that freedoms have kind of worsened according to the metrics that they're measuring. So yeah, it's quite a sobering report in a lot of ways, but it's something that I think is really kind of crucial that people engage with. And I think that one of the things that you mentioned there that's so kind of crucial to think is that these aren't necessarily just kind of issues that are of interest to academics. I think everyone over the last year is going to have heard, or certainly over the last few years is going to have heard about a lot of these kind of concerns, things like the widespread surveillance of users on the internet and the ability of I suppose bad actors to influence on the democratic process is something that is very much in the news all the time. And I think it's interesting to read about that, and unpleasant reading, but very vital.
Yeah, 100%. Well, like you said, we've got the article up at Digital Trends that you put up kind of walking through this, and I think everybody should go there and read that. And then if you want to go further in, we've got links to this report that you can go check out. It's fascinating, as you said, sobering, but it's really, really important, I think, for everybody to be aware of what's going on and understand what your interaction on the internet, how it's being affected, and what different factors are in there, and where you rank in this overall. Well, Luke, as always, thank you very much for joining us here on Digital Trends Live and giving us more information. Happy Guy Fawkes Day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.
All right, and thank you everybody for tuning into Digital Trends Live. So we have covered a lot of ground today. That's an hour and a half of programming, an hour and a half of interviews, an hour and a half of education and news and headlines and interactive discussion. And interactive is the key thing. I want to remind you all of, we appreciate everybody who joins in live. And we want to remind you as well that we are live every single weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. So tomorrow on the show, let's get a little bit of highlights. We've got Aaron Colite, who's the showrunner and co-creator of Daybreak, which is on Netflix. You've probably seen the advertisements for it. So that is what we're going to be talking to. So Aaron's going to be on the show. We've got Adam Smith, an advisor at Allied Corp, which is a cannabis producer that delivers targeted cannabinoid health solutions with a priority of veterans' health. So pretty interesting concept right there, talking about the cutting edge of that. And we will certainly be talking to Adam. Also co-hosting tomorrow will be none other than Mr. Jeremy Kaplan, editor-in-chief of Digital Trends, will be here in the top of the show to talk about some news, so he'll be joining us here. And all of that is while we're broadcasting live, so hit that subscribe button, whatever platform you're on. We do appreciate everybody who joins us here on Digital Trends. It is always fun talking about the headlines with you and just talking about technology with you. It's really a great time. We appreciate it. All right, so we will be back tomorrow with more Digital Trends Live.